As Marshal of the University, it is my honor to declare open the proceedings of the 516th Convocation of the University of Chicago and to introduce the university's 13th President, Robert J. Zimmer. Please be seated.
Good afternoon and welcome. As the Marshal has just announced, today's ceremony is the 516th time that the University of Chicago has assembled for a convocation. From the time classes began here in the fall of 1892, the university has held a convocation at the end of every quarter, allowing students to be recognized and celebrated for their achievements immediately upon completion of their studies, and to do so through formal exercises just as we do today. The primary purpose of convocation is, of course, to award degrees. But these occasions satisfy other important objectives as well. At Convocation number 1, on January 2nd, 1893, the university's first president, William Rainey Harper, set out goals for these ceremonies, goals which 120 years later we continue to observe. Harper believed these occasions of high ceremony to be a necessary and nourishing part of the life of a university, and intended to have them literally call together or cause to assemble all parts of the university community. In Harper's words, convocations are meant to bind together into a unity the many complex and diverging forms of activity which constitute our university's life and work. Today's ceremony, then, is also about reflecting upon the whole of what we do across the many libraries, laboratories, and classrooms that make up our campus. And in addition, it affords us all a moment to reflect upon the accomplishments of our past and the opportunities of our future, individually, collectively, and institutionally. I confer the degrees awarded today by authority delegated to me by the university's Board of Trustees, and I do so on behalf of the faculty of the University of Chicago that has responsibility for the educational programs recently completed. I welcome you to this 516th Convocation, a time-honored ritual that recognizes achievements of which we can all be proud.
As Provost of the University of Chicago, it is my privilege to introduce Jens Ludwig, the McCormick Foundation Professor of Social Service Administration, Law and Public Policy, and Director of the University of Chicago Crime Lab, who will deliver today's Convocation Address. Professor Ludwig is a renowned economist whose research on poverty, crime, and education has both undergirded the theoretical approaches to these urban challenges and motivated interventions of enormous impact. He publishes in leading journals in a wide variety of disciplines, and most recently authored the 2012 book, Controlling Crime, Strategies and Trade-offs. In 2008, Professor Ludwig co-founded the University of Chicago Crime Lab to learn more about youth violence prevention. The Crime Lab is a resource for local government agencies in Chicago and New York, state agencies in Illinois, and the U.S. Department of Justice, serving as the quantitative arbiter of effectiveness for innovative experiments in reducing violence and working with the agencies to test new approaches using randomized trials. For the past 15 years, Professor Ludwig has dedicated his considerable expertise in urban policy to Moving to Opportunity, a large-scale social experiment carried out by the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. In the area of education, he has carried out research about early childhood interventions, including Head Start, and about the effects of school segregation. Professor Ludwig is as dedicated to his students as he is to his research, mentoring undergraduate and graduate students alike, and serving as the academic director for students at the university's Harris School of Public Policy. The title of his talk today is Thinking About Thinking. Jens.
Thanks so much, Tom, and thanks to President Zimmer and to the trustees for the opportunity to provide remarks on this very special occasion. Most importantly, congratulations to the new graduates. I am sure you must all be feeling very lucky to be here today. Some of you might think you're lucky to be here because the University Dissertation Office has not yet discovered that what you called page lowercase Roman numeral XVI should actually have been called page Arabic numeral 2. Or that somewhere deep inside your dissertation you italicized something, or maybe that you even listed your table of contents in your table of contents. I promise to be brief so we can graduate you before these transgressions are discovered. Some of you might instead think you're lucky that you survived so many Chicago winters while you were here, including the Snowmageddon of 2011. If you're a humanities PhD, given the data I've seen on time to degree, you might be feeling lucky that you survived the heat wave of 1995. Or maybe the tornadoes of 1967, or even the Great Chicago Fire. Or you might be thinking that you're lucky because in about an hour, you will graduate from an institution that is widely regarded as one of the 10 best universities in the entire world. On a planet with 7.2 billion people, this puts you about 10 standard deviations above the mean of the academic achievement distribution, which is so far out in the right tail, it makes me think that the achievement distribution must be of the thick-tailed non-normal variety. Now, unfortunately, your accomplishment also puts you in the company of people who make jokes about non-normal thick-tailed statistical distributions. Don't worry, you're almost free. I'd like to spend the next 10 minutes talking about the real reason you and I are lucky to be here today. To see this, let's shift our gaze about 15 blocks south of where we are now in beautiful Rockefeller Chapel to the South Shore neighborhood, where nearly 1/3 of all families live in poverty and fully 95% of all residents are African American. So what does life in a distressed South Side neighborhood like this look like? Let's pick one day, June 2nd of last summer, a Saturday. At 3 in the afternoon, two groups of teens were arguing in the middle of 73rd Street about whether someone had stolen a bicycle from someone else. As the two groups start to separate, someone pulled out a .38 caliber semi-automatic handgun and fired, hitting a 16-year-old named Jamal Lockett in the chest. Hours later, Lockett was dead. 2 weeks later, prosecutors filed first-degree murder charges against the shooter, just 17 years old. Now, many of you may be asking yourselves, what could the 17-year-old shooter have been thinking? How could he possibly have thought that a used bike was worth the life of another human being? His thought process seems even more puzzling when you recognize that shooting someone on a crowded street in the middle of the afternoon in front of countless witnesses is basically throwing away 2 lives, not just one. A common explanation we hear is that these sorts of tragedies occur because of some sort of social or moral breakdown. The shooter must have been thinking that other people don't matter or that the rules don't apply to him. Political scientist John DiIulio of the University of Pennsylvania even coined a term for people he thought think like this: super predators. These sorts of attitudes develop, DiIulio claimed, because of a failure of some of our most fundamental socializing institutions, such as families and communities. If root causes like this are driving the violence problem, and if these root causes are hard to change, the implication of this type of root cause explanation is that people who are at elevated risk for violence will be hard to divert onto more pro-social life trajectories. Now, if you were a policymaker, what would you do if you thought that the violence problem is driven by, quote, super predators who are deeply committed to engaging in crime? You might think that the only thing you can do is to start locking people up. For better or worse, that's something the United States has been very good at doing for the past 40 years. In the 1970s, lots of people started to believe that social programs can't do anything to prevent crime. Since then, we've increased our imprisonment rate by nearly 500%, which now gives us the highest incarceration rate in the entire world. But can it really be true that the only way you can control crime is by putting 2.2 million people behind bars, with a prison population made up disproportionately of low-income young African American and Hispanic men? One of the great things about the University of Chicago is that not only do we take ideas seriously, we also view them skeptically. I helped run a research center called the University of Chicago Crime Lab that was not willing to take it on faith that the only way to prevent crime is through mass imprisonment, particularly in light of what we've been learning from psychology and behavioral economics about how human beings make decisions. After thinking about the problem carefully, it occurred to us, maybe the answer to the question, what was the shooter thinking, is that he just wasn't thinking at all. A growing body of evidence suggests a lot of our everyday behavior is automatic. That is, that we act without even thinking at all about what we're doing. Nobel laureate Daniel Kahneman of Princeton lays out this idea in his wonderful book, Thinking Fast and Slow, where he describes the two ways humans think, with what he calls System 1, which is automatic and intuitive, and with System 2, which is more reflective and deliberative, but requires more effort. And so we tend to ration the System 2 thinking and selectively deploy it. Now, some of you might be thinking, can lots of our behavior really be that automatic? So ask yourself, can you remember how many doors you've opened today? I bet you can't. Have you ever pulled on a door that says push just because it has large handles? I bet you have. The sort of automaticity you see at play in those actions is usually a positive in our lives. We develop a set of scripts or heuristics that we automatically follow to guide a lot of our daily activities, without having to make the effort to think about them. Maybe the 17-year-old shooter in South Shore last June has an automatic script that says, I don't let my friends down, or I can't let other people think I'm a pushover. That sort of script probably works well for him in most of the situations he faces growing up, but it can lead to tragedy when you have a .38 semi-automatic handgun in your waistband. About a year ago, I was in the Cook County Juvenile Temporary Detention Center, which is where the highest-risk juvenile arrestees in Chicago are detained while they await trial. A staff member there told me, 20% of the kids in here are criminals. You let them out, they'll do bad things to other people for sure. But the other 80%, I always tell them, if I could give you back just 10 minutes of your lives, none of you would be here. This argument suggests a lot of the violence is driven not necessarily by bad people, but by bad decisions made in the moment. Now, I would have been more than happy myself to just talk about these ideas in the abstract, but I was told that here at Chicago, you better have data in your commencement address. So I carried out a little experiment in collaboration with two local nonprofit organizations, Youth Guidance and World Sport Chicago, which was structured exactly like the sort of randomized controlled trial that provides gold standard evidence about what works in medicine, but still remains far too rare in the area of public policy. What we found was remarkable. Just 1 year of participation in a program designed to get teenagers to basically just slow down and behave less automatically, reduced the rate at which they were arrested for serious violent crimes by fully 44%. These findings, I think, provide striking support for the idea that we can reduce crime not by just locking people up, but rather by helping them during these critical 10-minute windows to think more about their thinking. So what does this tell us about why we're all lucky to be here today? What gift did we get that enabled us to be at the University of Chicago? We were lucky enough to have grown up in environments that tuned our automatic systems in ways that are adaptive for success in school. Our automatic responses aren't necessarily any better than the automatic responses developed by kids growing up in distressed South Side neighborhoods. They're just adaptive to different types of environments. Put any of us into a different environment, and the same automatic responses that serve us well in Hyde Park can get us into trouble. Here's a thought exercise that illustrates the point. After spending several years at the University of Chicago, your automatic systems have become trained to question everything, and I mean everything. For example, 2 years ago, I presented a research paper on school segregation to the Chicago Economics Department, for which I prepared about 40 PowerPoint slides for a 90-minute talk. There I was, 85 minutes into my talk. I looked down and realized that with all the questions, I was still stuck on slide 2. Why are you using Helvetica font? What is the sound of one hand clapping? How do I know that Jens is even your real name anyway? You need that question everything instinct to make great scientific contributions or to change how the world works. Now imagine that after this ceremony, you, recent University of Chicago graduate, are driving to Midway Airport from Hyde Park and get pulled over by a Chicago police officer along Garfield Boulevard in a neighborhood like, say, Englewood, where the homicide rate is like what you see in dangerous developing countries like Honduras or El Salvador. Police in places like this are worried that every car they stop could contain an illegal gun and are understandably focused on making it home safely at the end of their shift. Let me suggest to you that this would be a very good 10-minute window for you to try to dial down your Chicago workshop instincts and be at least moderately compliant. So one lesson is that a lot of your own behavior is also automatic, and your automatic system is set to default to Chicago workshop. But as you leave Hyde Park, you will find yourselves in situations where your automatic responses are not optimal, and you should be thinking Englewood traffic stop instead. A second lesson is that there are countless people whose automatic systems have been tuned differently by the requirements of navigating daily life in distressed, dangerous urban neighborhoods. And that, unfortunately, leads them to sometimes have trouble in situations where we all have a stake in them doing well. We may not yet have done enough to harness the power of helping people slow down and reduce automatic behavior. The world is set up to leave too many people vulnerable to making mistakes in key 10-minute windows that have disastrous consequences. That is how you end up with a society in which 11,000 people are shot and killed every year and over 2 million are behind bars. This is not the way the world has to be. It is people like you graduating from truly great institutions like this who can change things. With that, I think my own 10 minutes are nearly up. I congratulate all of you once again and look forward to following the great things that you all do in the future. Thank you very much.
As we begin the presentation of degrees, may I call your attention to the award of honors listed in the Convocation program, as well as the names of candidates receiving degrees today in absentia. At this time, in the favoring presence of the congregation here assembled, the deans of several faculties or their appointed representatives will present the candidates for academic degrees to the president of the university. The dean of the college will now present candidates for the degree of Bachelor of Arts or Bachelor of Science in programs in the college.
Mr. President, these students have completed the prescribed program of undergraduate studies. On behalf of the faculty of the college, I now have the honor to present them as candidates for the degree of Bachelor of Arts.
By virtue of the authority delegated to me, I confer upon you the degree of Bachelor of Arts or Bachelor of Science and welcome you to the Fellowship of Educated Men and Women.
Luis Alberto Amaya, Marvin Chambers, Leonardo Kaponsky, Julie N. Dorkin, Danielle Dawn Espinoza, Laura Flagg, Samantha Nicole Hauser, Ki Young Kim, Jung Min Kwak, Deanna Poo, Adam Mark Stevenson, Kevin Michael Wilson, Michael Allen Woost.
Mr. President, I have the honor of presenting a student marshal in the class of 2013, appointed for his excellent record in academic studies and his contributions to the university and its community. He has served with distinction as a student marshal. Alec Dmitry Lavi Mitrovich.
The Dean of Students in the William B. and Catherine V. Graham School of Continuing Liberal and Professional Studies will now present candidates for the degrees of Master of Liberal Arts and Master of Arts in Teaching in programs in the Graham School.
Mr. President, these students have completed the program of studies prescribed by the faculty of the William B. and Catherine V. Graham School of Continuing Studies, Liberal and Professional Studies. I now have the honor to present them as candidates for the degree of Master of Liberal Arts.
You have successfully completed a program of advanced study in the liberal arts, and by virtue of the authority delegated to me, I confer upon you the degree of Master of Liberal Arts. And I express the hope that your learning will lead you to advance knowledge in or enrich the practice of your chosen field.
Stephanie Aaron Thie-Skyer, Warren Alden Grimsley, Michael Douglas Whitwer. Mr. President, the students I now present have completed the program of studies prescribed by the faculty of the William B. and Catherine V. Graham School of Continuing Professional and Liberal Studies, and I now have the honor to present them as candidates for the degree of Master of Arts in the teaching of the particular subject for which they are qualified.
By virtue of the authority delegated to me, I confer upon you the degree of Master of Arts in Teaching. And I express the hope that your work will contribute to the education of children and the creation of a society dedicated to learning.
Courtney Barber, Lauren Mary Dobanitz, Lorna Michelle King, Raven Mayo, Sukari Juanita McGill, Devere Peters, Jr., Miriam Tesma Mikhail, Adrian Clark Walker, Wallace Wilburn, Jr.
The Dean of the Division of the Biological Sciences will now present candidates for the degree of Doctor of Philosophy in programs in the Division of the Biological Sciences and the Pritzker School of Medicine.
Mr. President, each of the students I now present has attained scholarly distinction in advanced studies and has prepared a dissertation that contributes to knowledge in a particular field of research. On behalf of the faculty of the Division of the Biological Sciences and the Pritzker School of Medicine, I now have the honor to present them as candidates for the degree of Doctor of Philosophy.
By virtue of the authority delegated to me, I confer upon you the degree of Doctor of Philosophy, and I welcome you to this ancient and honorable company of scholars.
Mark Charles Anderson. Shana Marie Augustin. Minal Chalishkan. Brett Warren Engelman. Wesley Andrew Grimm. Jean Guo. Amy Beth Hart. Matthew Robert Heinz. Jacob Albert Catch. David William Lerner. Chien Mao. Jeanette Sophia Messer. Wynne Catherine Meyer. Mark David Opel. Lorenzo Ronaldo. Jesse Warren Williams.
The Dean of the Division of the Humanities will now present candidates for the degrees of Master of Arts and Doctor of Philosophy in programs in the Division of the Humanities.
Mr. President, these students have completed the program of studies prescribed by the faculty of the Division of the Humanities and the special programs approved by their departments. I now have the honor to present them as candidates for the degree of Master of Arts.
You have successfully completed a program of advanced study in the humanities, and by virtue of the authority delegated to me, I confer upon you the degree of Master of Arts, and I express the hope that your learning will lead you to advanced knowledge in or enrich the practice of your chosen field.
Maria Trifonova Bankova. Dunai Jugadnatun. Sunwoo Lee. Scott Owen McFadden. Dan Yonut Olaro. Marlene C. Villeroy. Mr. President, each of the students I now present has attained scholarly distinction in advanced studies and has prepared a dissertation that contributes to knowledge in a particular field of research. On behalf of the faculty of the Division of the Humanities, I have the honor to present them as candidates for the degree of Doctor of Philosophy.
By virtue of the authority delegated to me, I confer upon you the degree of Doctor of Philosophy and welcome you to this ancient and honorable company of scholars.
Jeffrey Callahan Benson, Emily Kristen Block, Richard Summers DeLacy, Katarzyna Grochowska, Sungi Lee, Dana Marissa Rovang, Jill Allison Ava Shaw, Martha Ann Sprigg, Frida Hai Wasihongo Tenfa Girgis, Arthur Takeshi Thornton, Tanya Lee Treptow, Suzanne Elizabeth Wint,
The Dean of the Division of the Physical Sciences will now present candidates for the degrees of Master of Science and Doctor of Philosophy in programs in the Division of the Physical Sciences.
Mr. President, these students have completed the program of studies prescribed by the faculty of the Division of the Physical Sciences and the special programs approved by their departments. I now have the honor to present them as candidates for the degree of Master of Science.
You have successfully completed a program of advanced study in the physical sciences, and by virtue of the authority delegated to me, I confer upon you the degree of Master of Science, and I express the hope that your learning will lead you to advanced knowledge in or enrich the practice of your chosen field.
John Joseph Burke, Jr. Darren Chen. Brian Patrick Fruin. Andrew Liang Li Jen. David Matthew Johnson. Akrit Prasad. Rojan Tang. Minsik Yu, Mohammed Zahir, Mr. President, each of the students I now present has attained scholarly distinction in advanced studies and has prepared a dissertation that contributes to knowledge in a particular field of research. On behalf of the faculty of the Division of the Physical Sciences, I have the honor to present them as candidates for the degree of Doctor of Philosophy.
By virtue of the authority delegated to me, I confer upon you the degree of Doctor of Philosophy and welcome you to this ancient and honorable company of scholars.
Lindsay Ellen Bleen. Matthew Strom Borman. Dennis Urkel. Evan Philip Jenkins. Pongsakorn Kajanabas. Yoonjin Kim. Callum Quigley. Matthew Logan Rimher. Yuan Shao. Matthew Grant Sternberg. Andrea Daniela Stuparu. Haolan Tang. Jiyang Wang. Christopher Lee Williams.
The Dean of the Division of the Social Sciences will now present candidates for the degrees of Master of Arts and Doctor of Philosophy in programs in the Division of the Social Sciences.
Mr. President, these students have completed the program of studies prescribed by the faculty of the Division of the Social Sciences and the special programs approved by their departments. I now have the honor to present them as candidates for the degree of Master of Arts.
You have successfully completed a program of advanced study in the social sciences. And by virtue of the authority delegated to me, I confer upon you the degree of Master of Arts. And I express the hope that your learning will lead you to advanced knowledge in or enrich the practice of your chosen field.
Beatrice Juanita Adams. Nidal A.S. Alayasa. Shazia Naz Ali. Matthew Lee Amix. Blake Edward Antonides. Kiana Ashtiani. Patrick Burning O'Neill. Alexander Patton Bloom. Mariana Elise Brandman. Rebecca Kathleen Broussard. Lauren Waldrop Brubaker. Joshua Robert Bruce. Karina Lee Bull. Soleil Bozete. Michelle Jinso Chai. Jenna Mary Louise Chapman. Sandy Chin. Daniel Graham Cumming. Christopher James Daly. Maria Cecilia de Dios Sanguinetti. Stephen Craig Denale. Michael Dishuk. Eric Eggleston. Stephen Philip Fagan. Courtney Amber Philippi. Stefan Gerhard Friedel. Megan Marie Geyer. Catherine Kelly Gibbons. Jessica A. Gover. Stephen Joseph Gray. Daniel Joseph Greenberg. Resne Orduma Gogwar. Naya Hanif. Kelsey Michael Hines. Alexis Faye Hicks. Virginia Helen Horton Middleton. Kelsey Diane Hauser. Michael Glenn Cotto. Vanessa Madden Kaufman. Lauren Elizabeth Lacey. Julia Mangan Lane. Alessandra Lembo. Joshua Liu. Shushin Liu. Brendan Mackey. Layla Nada McDeesey. Justin Sky Malakowski. Brittany Tiara McGee. Tessa Ann Merriman. William Robert Meyer II. Vanessa Marie Masilli. Mary Elizabeth Miller. Matthew Adornetto Monahan. Michael Zachary Nance. Lauren Clara Naro. Zachary Robert Olson. Charles Robert Olvera. John Houston Payne IV. Joseph Perry. Donald Anthony Planey. Rebecca Leslie Planto. Andrew Thomas Proctor. Matthew Robert Pryor. Tao Chin. Matthew John Reichert. Lauren Rizzolio. Andrew Thomas Rothmund. Amanda Renee Rhines. Katarina Rose Rinkovich. Lauren Danielle Sarfin. Adrian Scotty. Gabriel Scher. Angelo Sepulveda. Neil Edward Stutz. Rebecca Pamela Sir. Sarah Jessica Swanson. Grace Shumei Tung. Marguerite Elizabeth Walsh. Christina Elizabeth Wozni. Julia Tess Welby. Gregory Wilson. Damon Bradford Winters. Ying Wu. Kian Sheng. Mr. President, each of the students I now present has attained scholarly distinction in advanced studies and has prepared a dissertation that contributes to knowledge in a particular field of research. On behalf of the faculty of the Division of the Social Sciences, I have the honor to present them as candidates for the degree of Doctor of Philosophy.
By virtue of the authority delegated to me, I confer upon you the degree of Doctor of Philosophy and welcome you to this ancient and honorable company of scholars.
Matilde Almlon. Lorenzo Ernesto Bernal Verdugo. Julia Akini Brookins. Susan Beth Bolivant. Paola Andrea Castaño Rodriguez. Sasha N. Cervantes. John Maurice Dobard. Daryl Mortensen Dugas. Allison A. Fasoli. Elina Inkeri Hartikainen. Kentaro Hirose. Melissa Jennifer Kenny Howe. August Kampf Lawson. Soon Jin Kim. Elise Ann Kramer. Gregory Joseph Legal. Paul Mayu. Julianne Lee Mercith Cook. Kevin James Mulqueeny. Christine Nutter. Sarah Elizabeth Parkinson. Catherine Ann Shoemaker. Elizabeth Craybill Shockley. James Vandermeer. Jennifer Allison Vanore. J. McKay Williams. Jessica Tara Wong. Ori Yehudai.
The Dean of the University of Chicago Booth School of Business will now present candidates for the degrees of Master of Business Administration and Doctor of Philosophy in programs in the University of Chicago Booth School of Business.
Mr. President, these students have completed the program of professional studies prescribed by the faculty of the University of Chicago Booth School of Business. I now have the honor to present them as candidates for the degree of Master of Business Administration.
By virtue of the authority delegated to me, I confer upon you the degree of Master of Business Administration, and I express the hope that your work will further wise choices in the allocation of economic resources for the benefit of all people.
Akarsh Kevin Ahuja. Glenn Andrianov. Prachi Arvind Apti. Jonathan Michael Bashir. Mark Nicholas Berberian. Emily Obushan Bergstrom. William Michael Casano. Jamunja Chakravarti. Aaron Hunter Colwell. Michael Ryan Daly. Trent William DeBruin. Zachary William Decker. Barun Devaraju. Laura Devereaux. Alexei Vladimirovich Dolinko. Joseph Theodore Elberts. Brian J. Gawalt. Ali Abbas Guman. David Thomas Interdonato Jr. Jennifer Joyce Johnson. Matthew Keller. Matthew Terry King. Shivakumar Kupaswamy. Juan Carlos Linares. Richard Scott Micah. Michael P. McNellis. Emily Praven. Megan Marie Pucala. Alfredo Rimolina. Christopher J. Schaefer. Ajit Singh. Sheng Wang.
Mr. President, the students I now present have attained scholarly distinction in advanced studies and have prepared a dissertation which contributes to knowledge in a particular field of research. On behalf of the faculty of the University of Chicago Booth School of Business, I have the honor to present them as candidates for the degree of Doctor of Philosophy.
By virtue of the authority delegated to me, I confer upon you the degree of Doctor of Philosophy and welcome you to this ancient and honorable company of scholars.
Vishal Ahuja. Yilin Sai.
The Dean of the Divinity School will now present candidates for the degrees of Master of Arts and Doctor of Philosophy in programs in the Divinity School.
Mr. President, these students have completed a program of studies prescribed by the faculty of the Divinity School for foundational education in the academic study of religion. I now have the honor to present them as candidates for the degree of Master of Arts.
You have successfully completed a program of advanced study in divinity, and by virtue of the authority delegated to me, I confer upon you the degree of Master of Arts, and I express the hope that your learning will lead you to advanced knowledge in or enrich the practice of your chosen field.
Matthew William Ark. Christina Catherine Iannis. Mr. President, each of the students I now present has attained scholarly distinction in advanced studies and has prepared a dissertation that contributes to knowledge in a particular field of research in the academic study of religion. On behalf of the faculty of the Divinity School, I have the honor to present them as candidates for the degree of Doctor of Philosophy.
By virtue of the authority delegated to me, I confer upon you the degree of Doctor of Philosophy and welcome you to this ancient and honorable company of scholars.
Samuel Chaim Brody. Darnell Morris Charles. John William Chairs Howell. Michael Richard Turner.
The Dean of the Irving B. Harris Graduate School of Public Policy Studies will now present candidates for the degrees of Master of Arts and Master of Public Policy in programs in the Harris School.
Mr. President, this student has completed the program of studies prescribed by the faculty of the Irving B. Harris Graduate School of Public Policy Studies. I now have the honor to present her as a candidate for the degree of Master of Arts.
By virtue of the authority delegated to me, I confer upon you the degree of Master of Arts, and I express the hope that your work will improve our understanding of public policy.
Li Cho. Mr. President, these students have completed the course of professional study prescribed by the faculty of the Irving B. Harris Graduate School of Public Policy Studies. I now have the honor to present them as candidates for the degree of Master of Public Policy.
By virtue of the authority delegated to me, I confer upon you the degree of Master of Public Policy, and I express the hope that your work will guide public policy toward the enhancement of the common good.
Christian Norton. Jiun Zhang.
The Dean of the School of Social Service Administration will now present a candidate for the degree of Doctor of Philosophy in programs in the School of Social Service Administration.
Mr. President, this student has attained scholarly distinction in advanced studies and has prepared a dissertation which contributes to knowledge in a particular field of research. On behalf of the faculty of the School of Social Service Administration, I have the honor to present her as a candidate for a degree of Doctor of Philosophy.
By virtue of the authority delegated to me, I confer upon you the degree of Doctor of Philosophy and welcome you to this ancient and honorable company of scholars.
Kristen Lee Berg.
Please stand for the singing of the university's alma mater. Please be seated.
This is a special day for all of you upon whom I have just conferred a degree. And it is a special day for family members and friends who may be here to join you. It marks the completion of your study, or at least one phase of your study, a path that I trust has been challenging. I hope you are enjoying this moment of celebration and perhaps moment of reflection that this convocation affords. You are now all graduates of the University of Chicago. Because of your achievements that we celebrate here today with your family and friends, each of you will always be connected to the University of Chicago, a connection that I hope you and we will foster for many years. The University of Chicago is an institution driven from its inception by an idea that one could create and continuously renew a university focused on rigorous, intense inquiry and analysis. The university, through its work every day, expresses the view that clarity derives from the clash of ideas, the challenge of assumptions, and the willingness to accept answers only when they meet the tests of argument. We seek understanding that is complex, expandable, and fluid, rather than simple and rigid. An understanding that reflects analysis rather than ideology, that accepts complexity over the comfort of simplicity, that seeks to delineate both the power and limitations of argument, and an understanding always ready to incorporate new data which can emerge and which in fact must be sought. We believe that the best education, the most empowering education, and the most powerful learning take place in the environment of constant challenge that is implicit in this culture of rigorous inquiry, and that this culture is responsible for producing ideas of power and importance to humankind. This focus on rigorous inquiry has defined the University of Chicago, its research and its education at all levels since its beginning, and it continues to do so today. The university and its culture are renewed every day by the work of its faculty, students, and staff. And while it is natural to focus on your own achievements today and what they mean for your future, you can also take great satisfaction in your contribution to the ongoing renewal of your university, the University of Chicago. I know that as graduates of this university in the coming years, you will be called upon to act, to speak, and to lead. And like so many University of Chicago graduates who have come before you, you will approach this challenge of leadership empowered by your University of Chicago education. The power of analysis and ideas that you have experienced here and that are now your own will serve you wherever your path takes you and whatever challenges you confront. Each of you who received a degree today has received help and support from parents, family, spouses, partners, children, friends, mentors, or university faculty and staff. And while it is your achievements that we mark today, all of these supporters can rightly take great pride in your accomplishment. And so to all degree recipients, please accept my congratulations for all that you have achieved. I wish you all good fortune and happiness in the years ahead. Enjoy your coming adventures wherever they may lead you. Congratulations.
This now concludes the 516th Convocation of the University of Chicago. Crescat scientia, vita excolator. Let knowledge grow from more to more, and so be human life enriched.